Welcome to ComSpark. Today we are in Cincinnati, Ohio. My name is Mike Broering, and I will be your guest host today. I would like to welcome our guest, Tim Ferguson, Chief Information Officer from Northern Kentucky University. Tim, what has been the most satisfying accomplishment in your career?
So I think the most satisfying accomplishment in my career is the teams that I've been able to work with and build, do great things together. So it's that relationships that you build in working in IT, and just the overall success that you have as a team. So I think you do lots of projects in your career, but it's that team building. And I've been very lucky in several different situations to have really solid folks, great teams that build great relationships that we still have relationships today from many years ago.
Great, great. What challenges are you most concerned about within the IT field?
Probably the biggest challenge I see right now is the lack of talent coming into the field. So IT, the talent gap's very large at this point. It's going to continue to grow. I think that's complicated because IT or technology is always changing. So if you look at things like blockchain or other technologies, finding people with those skills is difficult. But ultimately, there just is not enough supply. Demand greatly exceeds the supply today.
And how does Northern Kentucky University, obviously an institution of learning, how have you seen Northern Kentucky University adapt to address some of these gaps in the workforce?
Yeah, there's several things I think we are doing in this space with regards to IT talent. I think we're focused on that problem. Our College of Informatics is trying to increase our supply, but unfortunately it's not completely our control. Right? We have to get kids earlier in K through 12 involved in tech and get them interested in that. So we're working a lot of outreach into area elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. We work with organizations like Inter Alliance, who's also doing the same thing. So you're doing that type of work. But at the same time, we have to change our curriculum to make it more current. Higher education doesn't necessarily change as quickly as you might think. So we've been trying to speed up that process and quickly adjust our curriculum and our degrees to meet the demand that we're hearing. So we spend a lot of time working with corporate in the region, listening to their skill sets that they need, the talent that they need, taking that back to the classroom, adjusting our curriculum so we could try to meet that demand.
Great, great. Thank you. I'd like to shift and speak to you about the cloud. There's a lot of conversation about the cloud. How would you describe your organization's cloud strategy?
So probably the best way I would describe it is something called Cloud Smart. We're by no means cloud first, but we do look at every opportunity where we're doing a new application or something for a chance to put that in the cloud. Right now it's primarily when a vendor has a SaaS solution and we vet it. It seems to be secure. There's other institutions, including higher ed, successfully using it in the cloud. Then we'll adopt that SaaS model instead of putting it in our data center. And that's worked out pretty well for us. We are taking some of our data center to the cloud. We virtualize all of our servers and we're gradually doing that. But I would say our focus right now is sort of cloud smart in taking advantage of vendors that have a SaaS model.
Okay. In the future, the next maybe 2 to 5 years, do you see your company's the university strategy might shift in the future? If so, what direction do you think it might shift?
So I think over the next 3 to 5 years, we'll see the capabilities of doing more in the cloud. That comes back to even bandwidth concerns that you would have in getting to the cloud. So I think we'll shift to more of a cloud first strategy.
Yep.
I think a lot of our data center, the virtual servers that we have will end up in the cloud. We'll do a lot of our DR in the cloud. We run something on campus called Virtual Labs, which is really the ability for students to get to the academic software they need from our virtualized server. I think that'll be in the cloud. So right now we're probably 30 or 40% cloud-based, but that's largely through a SaaS model of those applications. I think by 3 to 5 years we'll be 60, 70, 80% in the cloud. And it'll be more of our compute, more of our data center stuff in the cloud at that time.
Okay. And are there applications or based on the type of workload or the sensitivity of the content that you feel like isn't a good option for the cloud?
Sure. I think in higher education, our student information system, that's sort of our crown jewels.
Yep.
All our student records and those things, that'll be the last thing we would consider putting in the cloud, but we have looked at that. And I think at some point in the future that will happen, but that'll be sort of the last set of things that would be considered going there just due to the sensitivity of the data.
Yeah, I think it's the governance models and the ability to secure that data, whether it's in a public cloud or private cloud or some hybrid in between, is certainly going to advance as we go.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, thank you. I'd like to talk a little bit about data and analytics. There's obviously a lot of conversation with respect to big data and how do we use it and analyze it to drive change within businesses and communities and government. Does Northern Kentucky University have a strategy for collecting, storing, and normalizing data?
Yes, we do. We've been working on this for a few years. We have a team dedicated towards business intelligence and data analytics, and we effectively have created a data warehouse where we put all of our data either directly into the data warehouse or virtually attached to it. An example of that would be our student data. So we have systems that collect what organizations those student is in, what clubs they're in, what events they go to. We obviously have their academic records,
Right.
and all that type of stuff. So we get all that together and we can analyze that, normalize that, and for a given student, track success factors, whether that be their ACT scores in high school, what classes they take, how often they access our systems,
Right.
which may be an important factor. We look at all that data and try to come up with really information that allows us to help those students be more successful.
Yeah, I would think that that's a great predictor that you can, derive statistical information to say, hey, we have the goal that everybody that comes in is fulfilled and ultimately makes it through graduation. But I would think that some of those data elements can give you predictors and say, hey, these are some students that maybe need some additional resources that we can make available to them.
Exactly, and I think one of the key things we've determined is engagement. So if you can measure a student's engagement with the campus,
Yeah.
whether that's through the systems they use, the fraternity they've joined, going to athletic events, or whatever that is, if they seem to be engaged on campus,
Yeah.
you're much more likely that they're going to succeed. So you're looking for data points that show that some students are not as engaged,
Yeah.
whether that's difficulty in classes or whatever that might be. And those are the students that ultimately we tend to need to help more, because that engagement really points out whether they're going to be successful or not.
Yeah, and back to the conversation about staffing and how do we find a talent tool. It's applying data to a problem like this that is specific to the university, but the concepts that you're sharing with the students and with the organization is, hey, we can use data to solve a lot of problems if we have those critical thinking skills.
That's correct. I think data informs a lot of decisions, and as a business, NKU is a business ultimately.
Yeah.
That the data that we have informs our success of our business, which is getting students through the programs to the degree sooner and more successfully.
Great. Hey, Tim, you've shared a tremendous amount. I'd like to just focus finally on sort of the staffing. And how would you rate area educational institutions, high schools, and higher education providers on preparing and providing pools of people with the technology talent needed for an IT organization like yours?
So I think in the region of Greater Cincinnati, the higher ed institutions are doing a pretty good job. I think there's still some room for opportunity to increase the demand. I think quality is pretty good. I think quantity is still a challenge. There is a stigma around technology. So if you go back into middle school,
Yeah.
a lot of kids are diverting away from tech.
Yeah.
Even though they use tech all the time, they don't really see it as a career
Right.
path. So I think we have challenges there
Yeah.
that we have to partner again with organizations like Inter Alliance. We do a lot of outreach into the K through 12 community to educate them. So we need to do more of that. We need to change our curriculum. But ultimately, I think we're doing a fairly good job quality-wise in producing strong students. Our College of Informatics
Right.
is really known well in the region for producing quality kids. We're just not producing enough, and that comes back to that pipeline
Yeah.
into the college arena, whether that's NKU or UC or Xavier, trying to get more kids into the field.
Yeah, and I think as a parent with 4 children, and as we look at high school and grade school, those STEM programs are very, very important. And I know that I see just within our local schools that there's a lot of focus at really applying more resources to those STEM programs, which I would think would ultimately help increase that availability of pool of students that want to look at technology in the future.
Yeah, I think the STEM areas in K through 12 is really important to try to get kids to understand the possibilities going forward. one of the interesting things for the state of Kentucky is, from higher ed perspective, they're incentivizing the schools for more kids getting into STEM.
Yeah.
So our funding is somewhat dictated that it's a priority for us. So
Yeah.
not only is it, we think it's really important, and we're focused on that again with like the College of Informatics or Sciences or what have you, but the state is come behind that with incentives for us to focus on those areas as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's wonderful to hear that. I know as you look at the community and the businesses, IT talent, and that is very, very important to, as a part of our economy to provide that growth in the future. And so it sounds like Northern Kentucky University is a big part of that solution.
Yeah, it's clearly recognized that IT talent's a big need in the greater Cincinnati area, and it's really important to our future economic growth.
Excellent. Well, Tim, thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Tim, for joining us today. And for those listening to the interview, to learn more, go to ComSpark.tech.